So, Wearables panel, which is hosted by Theo on the left. I'm going to join the panel as well. I've been allowed on. And, and in addition to that, excuse me a minute. We have Kate Ho, who's the CTO of Ginsberg. Product manager, my apologies. Paul Gill of Orsto has not arrived.
Nope.
And John Chambers from ThingWorx. So in place of Paul, Tim, who's going to be doing a presentation a little bit later, is a co-founder of 2C, which is a smartwatch app. So, yeah. Okay. Now, just to mention, there is actually a competition to win a picture. It's basically a photo card, and you actually get an LCD screen with a video inside your business card. I'll come, but essentially you need to Twitter photo in a box. And I put the hashtag on the social media page of IoT EDI. So the most popular tweet today will win a prize.
Actually, just take a picture of the empty seat, just to shame Phil for not turning up today. All right, everyone, thank you very much for turning up for the Wearables panel. My name is Theo Priestley. I'm a professional geek. After that downpour, actually, I would really like someone to create some kind of wearable device that tells me I have a leaky shoe. Because I only just found that after jumping into puddles. Okay, we had a slightly brief intro from Simon, but I just wondered if the panel could actually spend 30 seconds or so just introducing themselves, their company, and what they do, and how it's relevant to wearables. So, Tim, on you go.
So I'm Tim Willis. I have a PhD in informatics, specialising in natural language processing. I've had an app for a while, which I'll talk about, which was for word prediction, and that's been out 4 years, but wasn't really gaining traction. Then I saw the potential with smartwatches, put a team together in January. We're doing great things. We've got a demo and quite a lot of potential in that. And we're hoping to grow a very, very big wearable tech company very fast.
Hi, John Chambers, account director at ThingWorx. Not many, I guess not everyone in the room will know who ThingWorx are or is. But instead of maybe telling you what we do, I'll maybe try and describe some of the problems that we solve for people involved in Internet of Things. So I don't really know the profile of people in the room and what you do, where you come from. I know there's some enterprise and industry people, there's academics and so on and so forth. But we're all involved in IoT and interested in some way. So what effectively ThingWorx does or has developed is a platform that solves lots of the problems that you're going to face when you're building IoT applications. So if you're someone who's got hardware or a hardware platform and you need to connect it to something, that's a problem in the Internet of Things. We've solved that, we believe, with our intelligent edge device software. We can talk about that later offline if you like. We also solve problems around the connectivity and the method of connectivity, in that we're agnostic to whatever protocol or standard or connectivity mechanism you use. But the unique thing about ThingWorx is that it lets you build IoT applications 10 or 20 times faster than using general purpose development tools. So ThingWorx is kind of modeling environment that lets you write apps without code, and it's purpose built for the Internet of Things. And in terms of wearables, just to put it into perspective, we don't make things, but we facilitate and enable the making of things. As well as IoT software, we also provide 3D software, so our customers make things and make the products that we use day to day. And we are seeing kind of interesting trends in industry and industrial applications for wearables, and perhaps we'll talk about that a little later.
So hi everyone, my name's Kate Ho. I'm the product manager for Ginsberg.io. So basically it's a Scottish project. Ginsberg is a Scottish government project looking at how we could use technology to improve the well-being of the Scottish population, mostly the mental well-being of the Scottish population. We've got a mobile app that you could download, so I won't talk too much about that. But the biggest thing for us is really about, in relation to wearables, is this concept of the emotional web. So we have a lot of things which are to do with a lot of the wearables, such as Fitbit and Jawbone, whose price point have come right down in the last 18 months, trying to look at how we could use that inside the healthcare system. But the interesting thing about that is, so you've got Fitbits and Jawbones and all of these wearables that measure steps and sleep, but no one's actually doing the emotional piece, right? So, yeah, I could name a couple of examples, but a lot of behavior change actually gets driven from emotions, you know, your emotional triggers. So, trying to understand that in the context of how do we provide a much more consumer-led kind of focused healthcare inside the Scottish Government. So that's what we do, and in terms of the platform that we have, that we've built on, so we've got an app where you can connect your, again, multiple apps, whether it's your Runkeeper, your Strava, your Fitbit, or your Jawbone, and we allow you to not only get that data, but actually export it in CSV, you know, a format that you could do something with. So the idea is that the data is yours and you own that data. You could delete it, and we literally will delete it. You will never get that back. So that's what we do. Go and check it out. And I'll talk more. Hi, Simon.
Hi. Thanks, Kate. So I blog about wearables of almost every description, from augmented reality to virtual reality headsets, to fitness trackers, smartwatches, smart clothing. I mean, some of the Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns. You know, on one side, it's great that there's so much innovation. You see a lot of novelty sort of products entering the market. I don't know if anyone's seen the selfie shoe, where you have a little slot for your phone or your GoPro on the tip of your shoe. You raise the shoe and you take a selfie. You know, it got crowdfunded. In fact, it was pretty popular. So you know, it's one thing that about wearables that I'm finding quite interesting, which as an observer is interesting, is that so many well-funded OEMs are getting it so badly wrong. We've seen that with Google Glass. We're seeing it right now with Sony smart glasses. They look ridiculous. Mini, the car OEM, recently launched a VR headset that enables you actually to see through the panels of the car. So the internal structure of the car becomes completely invisible, using external cameras to reflect light into the handset. I mean, great technology. It will enable you to drive far more safely. But again, the form factor looks ridiculous. Why is it so hard? And I think the trend will start moving towards invisibles as opposed to wearables, and that's when things will start becoming interesting, where they'll become much smaller, therefore they become hidden, or they'll actually become embedded within the skin itself, either as a tattooed circuit board or some kind of embedded implant. So the whole area to me is absolutely fascinating.
All right, actually picking up on that, and so you've mentioned the selfie shoe and you've mentioned the Google Glass and augmented reality. Wearables is such a huge term. So what does the term wearable mean? Because obviously it encompasses an awful lot.
Well, I'll tell you what segment will dominate, if that's any help. And if the predictions are correct, there'll be 200 million devices sold by the year 2020. Now that's still fairly insignificant, but it'll be worth around $60 billion in total. And that includes everything. You know, that's sports gear, fabrics, fashion tech, and so on. They estimate that around 60% of those sales will be smartwatches, of which only one company will dominate. And just to give you an idea of the domination of Apple right now, in one day of pre-orders, more Apple Watches were sold than every single Android Gear-powered device was sold last year in a single day. So, and the other thing about a little trivial point is that the Apple Watch is the highest margin product Apple has ever made. So I'm not shorting their stock. Buy Apple.
Kate, what does it mean to you, wearables?
I think, well, I mean, there's not much I can. I think you know. So my background's in HCI, and you know, back in the 1980s and also the 90s, you had this idea of jackets that had computers embedded in them. So this isn't a new thing. But what I think has really changed recently is this idea of devices which are smart or connected in some way, but in a way which the price point has just come right down. So I was looking at the Apple Watch and thinking, I'm not going to spend 500 quid on an Apple Watch. So I went and bought a Pebble Watch, which is 80 quid. And actually, you know, that's what you would pay. You kind of pay for a nice watch. Well, I'm sure nicer watches cost, you know, a lot more. But the price point is the thing that I think has made this much more prevalent and much more interesting as a sector for me.
It means lots of things. Wearables is a bit like IoT. It's a sort of catch-all term that means, we think it means something specific, and yet it can mean almost anything. So I guess without getting into the semantics, the idea of wearing something, we maybe think of it as an exclusively human thing, except if you've got pets and you dress your dog up in fancy clothes and whatnot. So I'm telling you that because I think wearables extends beyond the things we wear and into other industries and other, let's say, other maybe living things or moving objects or what have you. So it depends on your point of view, and it depends on, I guess, your positioning if you're a product owner, for example. But just one example of how the idea of Fitbit has been extended into agriculture. I was listening, I don't know if the Microsoft guy is still here, but I was listening to one of his colleagues speak recently about Fitbit for cows. And it was, I tell you, it was not a Fitbit, it was like an industrial tracking thing strapped to the cow's leg. And the application, once we gave him a bit of time to explain, was actually kind of interesting because the application was about the kind of productivity of livestock and kind of helping inform the livestock owner, the farmer, of when in a particular day, a particular hour during a month where that cow is most fertile is when they're moving more. They're in heat, for want of a better phrase, and they're literally moving more. And there was a correlation between literally taking extra steps and being fertile. Just right. And this is a wearable technology, so just an idea. And by the way, extending out that application, there was also limited research, but some indicators of when during the hottest part of that time you artificially inseminated the animal, that you would have a better predictor of a bull or a cow. I mean, it's just crazy, but it's just from a Fitbit for a cow. So think of wearables as stuff that's on living creatures, not just human exclusive.
I know the companies do that. I don't know if you're being sarcastic about it, but actually it's happening.
No, I've heard it. I mean, I have to give the colleague at Microsoft his dues. I mean, I'm taking his word for it. I hope it was true. I won't quote his name, but...
That's exactly what's happening.
Okay.
It's the first company that's running it.
Is it Wellcow? There's lots of them.
A unpregnant cow is an empty cow.
Is that tweetable, is it? Actually, if we move away from that then, if we expand actually on the business application, so we all see, I mean, I've got wearables dripping on me just now, and you have, and there's a few people in here with smartwatches and stuff. It's not just all about personal usage. So do you want to talk, maybe expand on maybe where you see it being brought into the business perspective, for example, in the enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about health. I think healthcare is probably going to be the biggest marketplace. I don't, just based on what I know, it's obviously a new frontier. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know about leisure applications. But judging by the amount of money people spend on fitness and drinks and kit, I think that's potentially the biggest sector. Also, so elderly care, aging population, we know that, and also sort of people the legal responsibilities, if you don't look after people, there's a huge, the insurance must be gigantic on running a care home, but we're going to have loads and loads of care homes, and as well as the moral responsibility, the legal responsibility. If you make a mistake and someone falls and isn't detected, there's going to be gigantic costs there. These have an advantage with elderly people that there's a sort of familiar form factor. People don't like wearing pendants very much, whereas a watch they're used to, and obviously it has a function, it tells them the time, so it can be invisible as far as they're concerned. So yeah, it's going to be about preventing rather than detecting, I think, so monitoring people as much as possible. You can detect a drop, so you can sort of say, well, that person for some reason has dropped 4 feet and haven't moved since, so that's a pretty strong sign that you need to check that up.
Go for it.
Just in terms of healthcare, so we went to see the clinical lead for the Anne Rowling Clinic. So this is J.K. Rowling donating £10 million to the University of Edinburgh, and they actually have a clinic for people with neurodegenerative diseases. Anyway, I went to see the technical lead, the clinical lead, and one of the things that they said was, he had a patient in that morning coming all the way in from Berwick, has MS, and all he could do is say, "You're so far beyond what we could do. Please don't come back." Mostly because it took him all of that effort to come in, and it will take him all of that effort to get back again. But the idea of then being able to have a Jawbone or Fitbit, which is only about 40, 50 quid now, again, it's about the price point coming down, to then remotely monitor his patient and then be able to give feedback, so this patient doesn't have to come into the clinic. That's the exciting bit. And yeah, so from that perspective, Wearables is really changing the way we deliver healthcare. And of course, I'm saying this because I work in SG at the moment, but that's quite a radical transformation inside the way that we help people be healthier. So, and that obviously, to a certain degree, kind of translates to healthy workforce equals, more productive companies. John.
Only one point to bring it back to people, I think. The idea of wearing things to track where people are for general well-being isn't that new. There's companies, BT and other companies, have for quite a long time had wearable technologies in the form of products that I call the badge of dishonor, the kind of horrible, ugly pendants and panic buttons and all sorts of things that are designed to deliver care to, in specific cases, I guess, elderly population or people who suffer from mental afflictions that require monitoring. And a real opportunity where wearables can, I think, gain real traction, and where I think the Apple Watch and products like that will excel in specifically, is helping facilitate that monitoring of people in a way that doesn't make them feel like a freak or some kind of thing that's being managed. There's an opportunity for those making products and wearables to make beautiful and wonderful and engaging things that can replace some of the crap that we've had to use to help us manage, let's say, people who are part of in that profile or in that population. And we all know in the room, I'm imagining, that the population's aging and the issue of personal health care is increasingly important. And I think wearables can provide a real cool, if done and designed in the right way, really cool applications.
So going back to the form factor and the aesthetic challenges of augmented wearable products, I think the failed experiment that is Google Glass makes it perfectly clear that it's not cool in a social context to have a camera strapped to your face, and it does nothing other than create a sort of a non-verbal barrier between you and the person you're speaking to. there's just no place for that technology, I think, in a consumer environment. Where it does work beautifully is industrial. Because if you look like a cyborg, but you're in a remote location inspecting an industrial asset like a gas pipeline, it doesn't really matter. Or perhaps you are involved with MRO, maintenance, repair and operation of military or industrial assets. Same goes to the fact that you may look a bit weird, but if it enables you to do a good job, it doesn't matter. And I can imagine, particularly augmented reality, not imagine, it is being used today to great effect, where you can overlay documentation and you can have on location training or advice while repairing a jet engine or whatever it happens to be, and the instructions can be overlaid using a Google Glass or similar products. So that is revolutionizing the maintenance, repair and overhaul industry sector in terms of wearables. And also industrial warehousing and logistics, having wearable devices help you get to the right products and fulfill the right orders and that sort of stuff. So I think that is the opportunity for wearables, industrial, not consumer. Until the products become lighter, more user-friendly, I think companies should stay away from the consumer market for now and just focus on the enterprise.
Just jumping onto that about the documentation about AR. So in order to do that, the interesting thing is you need the relevant information at the right time. So it's all about context. So following up from the speaker before about industries around it. So you then have to start thinking about smart kind of data backend, so that you don't have to, if you do want to bring up the instructions, it automatically knows which instructions. So you don't have to look around and kind of do the swiping thing in order to get to the right thing, because you don't have that interface to be able to do that. So there's actually a massive industry, a massive piece around how do you provide contextually relevant information. And to signify how important this is, IBM have just announced that they are putting some significant investment into Watson. So there's Watson Cloud, Watson Services, and I believe they're hiring 2,000 new people, 2,000 engineers, 200 of which are researchers, in order to fund the Watson kind of engine to be able to provide much smarter, much relevant services. And the way they put it is, you have a load of documents. People can't filter through that, but if the computer can filter through it to the point where they could provide, here's the 6 options that you could pick from, then there's a whole piece around that before we can kind of get the interface right.
Touching on the real-time context. So obviously all these devices, you want to be able to access that information in real time or in batch to pore over it later. Security and privacy is obviously one of these concepts that has been discussed many times in this panel, in other panels, and on topics. Is this again another area that we should be thinking around, because it is a machine or it is a thing that is transmitting information? That information has to go somewhere. People might obviously hack into it. I've seen people hack into, you can hack into a Fitbit, I think, to control your TV, so it knows when you fall asleep, it switches off the TV because of your lack of movement. So should we be concerned about people using these as devices to find out more information about ourselves and our whereabouts?
Just put a dictat out about a week ago. I don't know if you read that.
No.
So yeah, the wearables industry have just lost however many million consumers. But it was an official announcement saying that if you are caught as a soldier or a military person in the Chinese army, there will be repercussions. That's both because sensitive information could find its way into the wrong hands, but also they don't want to broadcast their exact location, and that's one of the concerns. I believe the British military don't take that approach, interestingly.
So it is a legitimate concern in some industries, or should
I suppose trade secrets would be another issue that if I mean, I went to Land Rover, Jaguar Land Rover last year, and I was taking photographs on campus of you know, one of those stealth cars. So it's got all the dressing and everything. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And within you know, at the blink of an eye, a security guard was straight over there asking me to delete the photos and actually, you know, watching me do it to make sure that those photographs were removed. So I think in that particular industry, they are very sensitive about security, and as a result, police it quite rigorously. But it's going to be a very difficult challenge to control content, because, you know, wearable devices come with cameras and recording devices, and it's going to be difficult to police. It's going to be a challenge.
Anyone else want to take that?
I don't know how knowledgeable people are in the room are about IT security and the whole area of data protection and ownership and all that sort of thing. But my point of view, I guess my personal opinion is that as a IoT platform provider, we're responsible for maintaining, you know, high levels of security, so creating products with standards and high standards of security, delivering solutions that are protected and deliver that, again, high standard of security. But I feel because we're talking about data that's in the cloud, it's not safe. Inherently, it's 99 or 90 point something % safe. I mean, it's a fact of life that we are working very hard to protect ourselves against these sort of hacks and security breaches. But people who are malicious hackers are using increasingly more sophisticated tools. So I don't know if we're any safer now than we were a few years ago, but we're working hard to keep things safe. But my personal opinion is that it's also your responsibility to make sure things are secure in however your IoT solution might be implemented. I don't know if anyone's got an opinion on that or disagrees with me, but it's a general subject across the Internet of Things, not just exclusive to wearables. And I think as a group of people, we need to all be taking some responsibility for security.
Tim, actually, one for you to actually take is, so you're obviously building an app, you're building an interface for wearable devices. So, you know, for people who are interested in this or building something, what is more important? Is it the device? Is it the user experience? Or should people be centering around the data that it's going to be generating?
I think from the previous experience with the word prediction app, it's got to be the experience. I mean, you know about it. People don't like things. They've sort of people give you there'll be 47 things they like on it and one they don't. And they'll give you 1-star review as a result of it. The tiny screen on these is going to be an issue. This is why we've sort of hopefully solved that with data input, which is what we're specialising in. But we are sort of we've got 3 designers on our team of 8, and we're really focusing on the design side of this, because obviously that's work for Apple. It's got to look, it's as much a fashion item as a functional one. And I think that's what Apple have always got right. People, I think they'd rather have, a lot of people would rather have something that looks great than works better.
Right. Kate?
So I think the user experience has to be key. I mean, that's what obviously Apple does well, but we all have to do well, because at the end of the day, people don't really care. People outside this room, your mom or someone down the street, or all of your friends on Facebook don't care about the data they generate. It's about what they could do and what cool things they could do. My favorite story is that I used to, before I lost my 3rd jawbone up, used to have my jawbone up, and when I was calorie counting on my MyFitnessPal, my favorite thing was that when I went for a run, it would automatically, because I've got those 2 accounts hooked together, it would automatically tell me in MyFitnessPal that I could have that extra 500 calories. No, it sounds trivial, but like it just made me feel slightly more legitimate. So it's that to me is that kind of lovely, seamless experience that you don't get anywhere else. But what I will say is the biggest challenge today facing user experience isn't really around software. It's around battery life. So those smartwatches, you have to charge them every night. I charge my phone every night. I mean, like, I've had to go from my Nokia 3210, where we had to charge the phone like every 5 days, to charging the iPhone every day or 2 days. And now I have to charge my phone on, charge my watch on top of that. It just kind of makes me want to kind of turn off. So I think until that battery problem actually solves itself, like, no matter how fancy it is, you actually have to, charging it every night is a bit of a pain.
I agree with you. I think that, again, the technology has got to move beyond just novelty. I probably spent 1.5 years seriously doing the quantified self. If I was halfway to the gym and I suddenly realized I'd left my Fitbit and or my fuel band, I would literally go back, because that's the lost opportunity to be counting calories or steps or whatever it is. I was absolutely obsessed, and I would spam everyone every day, Twitter, Facebook, day and night, so they knew exactly what workouts I was doing. I was into CrossFit at the time, and collecting a lot of data. And it was interesting, because what surprised me was how much of a creature of habit I am. Every month I would have a very, very similar, Sundays I do not exercise, 0 calories, more or less, lots of calories consumed. Whereas Tuesday was always the most active day, and I would think, well, why is that, I wonder? And then once I'd learnt that, there were no further insights, and I was just accumulating millions and millions of fuel points for no good reason, and that's when I completely switched off. And like Kate said, I got through about 5 fuel bands. They kept breaking. I'd send them back, a new one would come back in return. After a while I thought, well, I'm just bored of sending the thing back. And of course, every time I send it back, I'm losing that opportunity to acquire fuel points. So same with Fitbit, I kept on losing it, and I just went from being fanatical to just nothing, and I haven't done it since. Because what's the point is, until we have medical grade sensors on our bodies monitoring our health and well-being 24/7, and having that data shared via Watson, IBM Watson, having an AI intelligent analytics platform that will do a far better job than your GP in terms of diagnosis, because they'll be able to join the dots and do that monitoring 24/7 and share that data with medical professionals when something crops up as a concern, blood pressure, something not looking quite right, and there's an alert, a notification through your watch, go see your GP immediately. That's going to be incredibly reassuring, knowing that those wearable devices are guarding, protecting your well-being, and potentially predicting disease or ill health years in advance. It's going to be game-changing.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump on that. I mean, so it sounds like, yes, the wearables are breaking, but I just want to push 2 things. One of which is the thing that kind of gets me excited is the idea that you could pass your data onto your children or your grandchildren, so that when you go into hospital and they ask for a family medical history, that you can actually have this treasure trove of information about how genetically you're kind of built. And then the second thing around that is going to stretch around research kit and health kit that are on the iOS platforms, at least. So the idea that you might be able to donate the data that you have, that you produce, that you have sensors around, to charities like Marie Curie, so that they can, or cancer research, so that they can actually do wide-scale research on the kind of living factors, living factors on what impacts certain types of cancers. I think that's the kind of real kind of big picture vision stuff later on.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience? I don't know how much time we have, but pretty limited. So a couple of questions. Anyone? Yep.
I'm just wondering, if you look at Fitbits or you look at the wearables, what we've heard a panel talk about is monitoring devices, about how I am, how I feel, how I'm doing. So, do you think that's going to have any impact on, for example, the insurance industry? but we're going to see slightly differentiated insurance policies, which we are beginning to see in the US medical healthcare system now, based on having to wear Fitbits and so on.
Well, I'll take that one actually, even though I'm not supposed to. Aperio actually gave all their employees Fitbits, and they allowed them to upload their stats into a cloud-based system. They opened up Google Groups, I think it was, that allowed them to discuss their eating habits and exercise habits. And they actually gave all of that to their corporate medical insurance and saved themselves $300,000 a year purely based on that information. And the employees were obviously happy to get involved because it was a bit of a social activity as well. But there's an example where a company has said, I'll tell you what, if we can harness this information, and it's purely from a very basic medical situation, but if we can give this to an insurance company and they can actually look at the well-being and say, actually, you've got a very healthy and active workforce, therefore they're not prone to claim, then yes, we'll cut the insurance. And so in that kind of example, yes. But that goes back to the sharing of the information and what kind of information you want to share, either with your employer or with an insurance company, for example. But yes, I think there are companies already, so Aviva would probably be jumping on this if they haven't already, where, you know, rather than say, tick a box, say, I don't smoke and yes, I regularly exercise, here's a Fitbit and here's a portal for you to upload that information. We'll monitor you over 6 months and we'll obviously adjust your premiums accordingly.
Okay, I think we need to move on, and perhaps we'll get a demo of your app, Dr. Willis. But thank you, Theo.
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.